All right, now we cool. Yeah. Applause. Thank you. Applause for Councillor Ferry, who I think was first, in the room. Kia kara kia tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, ki mā taratara ki tai. E he aki ana, te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, te hei mauri ora. Morena everyone, and I have a slightly croaky voice from singing at Coldplay last night. So it was a pretty good night for the city, and then we've got Friday and Saturday as well, so it's great to see so many visitors, and the public transport went fantastically both ways, so that's good. Right, we've got absence from Councillor Lee on council business. We've got Councillor, he's on Aotea Great Barrier with the local board there. We have, it's around the other way, Mayor Brown on council business overseas, Councillor Filipaina absence, he's for medical reasons. Councillor Sayers is on council business. And we've got lateness from Councillor Fully, who's on her way, and we've got lateness from Councillor Darby, who's also on his way. And is he on his way? Cool. And then early departure from Councillor Ferry and Councillor Fletcher, but let's make sure that we are finished before that they need to leave. Right, do I have a mover for those? Deputy Chair, Angela Dalton, and Deputy Mayor will second. All those in favour? Any opposed? No. Got attendance by electronic link. We didn't have any requests a minute ago, and now Councillor Walker has beat us to the chase and has requested electronic attendance because he is in an area he cannot get to the meeting or something. Right, can I have a mover for that? Councillor Fletcher and Deputy Mayor would like to second. All those in favour? Any opposed? No. Are there any declarations today? No. Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes. Can I have a mover? Councillor Leone. Councillor Ferry, did you want to second? All those in favour? Any opposed? No. There are no petitions. There were two items for public forum. One was I Love Avondale, but they have now would like to come to December meeting. And then we have, sorry? February. Oh, February. Okay. So they're coming to a later meeting. Then we have Safer Michael Fleck would like to come forward. Thank you, and you can bring obviously if you want supporters to come up and sit with you, you're welcome. So thank you for coming along today. Now we'll just get you to your microphones, you press the button on the right and then press it to turn it off again. You've got 5 minutes and then maybe a couple of questions at the end. Thank you very much.
Good morning, councillors. Thank you for welcoming us. And we are Safer Tech NZ, a North Shore public education and research group since 2020, looking at the effects of electromagnetic radiation, EMR as it's known, and advocating for protection and safety, especially for children. We are two representing our core group, Michael Vaughan and myself. Michael is our child safety specialist. And we began this journey on July 1st of this year. Councillor Hills and Darby may recall that we invited them to a public meeting in Devonport where over 80 residents attended, concerned about the coming installation of new 5G cell technology into their neighborhoods in 8 locations. We became very concerned and took action, and we are here today to represent the people of Devonport, to represent several of our own organization's members whose homes will be confronted by this technology, and also for thousands of Aucklanders who are suffering from electromagnetic hypersensitivity, also known as EHS, a high-stress medical condition. We looked at the certificates of compliance that were issued by Council to 1NZ and 40 South for these installations, and with careful scrutiny, we found several significant errors and vague promises of commitment. We've duly reported this to the Council's Planning Department. Further, we looked at the reality today. It's quite obvious that we are living in an increasing environment of high use of countless digital devices and downloads amid a landscape of plantations of cell towers and poles without adequate regulation of safety. When we have addressed these issues to government and to the telcos themselves, we've been told the NSTF 2016 permits this. When we've looked into that regulation, we've found that it is wanting. It's inadequate, outdated for the technology we're using now, and it needs to be revised. We have a solution. The RMA, the Resource Management Act, provides for Council to remedy, mitigate, or avoid such hazards, and we feel Council has not taken the opportunity provided by a parliamentary act and instead deferring to a mere regulation which is no longer satisfactory or providing safety. So we're here to offer to Council an opportunity to dissolve this dilemma. Mike, would you explain what we want to recommend?
Does that work? I'm going to press the button on the right there. It should tap it. No.
Use the other one.
Oh, the silver one. Oh, got you. Sorry, I just failed the first test.
Sorry, yeah.
Marina, good morning. What we propose to Council, we want to support Council with the dilemma it faces. The dilemma between adhering to national guidelines, the NESTF 2016, and protecting the health of residents. Our research and advice confirms that the RMA provides a way for Council to intervene on behalf of residents. Working together, we can avoid a repeat of the local Devonport saga should Spark and 2 Degrees make moves to introduce their installations. That would result in collective radiation emissions that could violate the current allowable limits, resulting in overexposure for residents and the environment. The RMA and related regulations are undergoing revision and fast-tracking. Here is the opportunity to review Council's Certificate of Compliance process and prepare a submission for the next version of the RMA, insisting on safer standards. At the same time, we can begin building genuine protection into the Unitary Plan Update 2026. Supporting Council towards this end, Safer Tech New Zealand specifically recommends the following. Number 1, pause all EMR installations, that means cell towers, to allow for a review of the certification process. Please be guided by the precautionary principle. Remember, once asbestos was safe, lead in petrol was safe, and tobacco was safe. Number 2, include Safer Tech New Zealand and our technical and medical specialists in the submission process for RMA revision. Number 3, adopt more protective safety standards that concur with current independent science. We can advise on this and work alongside Council. What's that? Oh, wrapping up. Number 4, require rigorous environmental impact statements for all new technologies, especially when updating the Unitary Plan of 2026. 5, place high importance on informed consent. Fully inform the public of the potential risks involved with wireless technology and other new technologies. Provide practical means for the considered views of residents to be heard. And lastly, number 6, create a health and safety office and officers to manage risks with new technologies, with vigilant and consistent safety testing. In closing, our recommendations aim to support Council in balancing regulatory guidelines with its duty to protect residents. As the RMA is revised and the Unitary Plan is updated, We believe these measures will promote a safer, more informed approach to technology in our communities. Thank you for your time and consideration. We look forward to a follow-up meeting to advance this important work. We are happy to explain in detail any of the points raised above. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. And what was your name again? Sorry.
Michael Vaughan, Vaughan.
Two Michaels. Thank you very much. Right, we've got Councillor Turner. You'd have a question.
Is the Starlink network and any of the other satellite networks, etc., that beam down on us from space the same type of 5G radiation that you're concerned about coming from the towers? It's because you guys are here, that's the problem.
We've just sent a message to the tech people. I'm not sure why that hasn't happened before, but
So there were tech issues in the room for the Chairs Forum on Monday. Yeah, so.
we'll just wait a couple of seconds because there are people online, and I think we do need to hear your answers.
Oh yeah. Hello.
Testing, testing. Oh, okay. Good job I didn't shout, isn't it? Thank you for your question. There's a lot we don't know about the frequencies involved in Starlink, but it will be a form of electromagnetic radiation, so it is contributing to the ever-increasing electronic soup that we're all living in. We're mainly concerned about the towers that are being placed very close to people's homes and also schools. Because with radiation, the closer the source of the radiation, the more powerful it is. We're particularly concerned about 5G because 5G involves frequencies that have never been used before in terms of public telecommunications, much higher frequencies than those that are currently used for 3G, 4G, and the existing 5G tends to be at the same kind of frequencies. In future, millimeter wave technology, which is beamforming technology, is going to be introduced and is starting to be introduced in New Zealand. And this is a completely new form of technology. The Ministry of Health and the telcos are downplaying this, saying it's just the same as 3G and 4G. This is completely false because what we do know is that the higher frequencies impact on the body in a completely different way from the existing lower frequencies, and safety testing on these higher frequencies has not been done.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there no other questions? So just if you would you like to move a vote of thanks, Councillor Turner? No, I'm happy to second. Now we'll. I know you've met with John Duguid and discussed some of the planning rules, and obviously under these national environment standards, they do sit with government, but of course we can always ask questions on your behalf. But thank you for attending, and happy to, if you do have more questions for me, you can email me after this meeting as well. So thank you. Right, all those in favour? Any opposed? No. Thank you very much. Right, we had one request for local board input that was declined. It was Orake local board member Troy Churton. That was about requesting us to remove, withdraw ourselves from the MDRS, which we have declined because it's not appropriate at this time. There hasn't been a change. The government does need to change the law for us to be able to change any of our anything we're doing in this space, and have spoken to Minister Bishop last week, and it's still progressing. We're hoping that, we can do this work around hazards and around MDRS and a number of the light rail corridor and other issues, but we do not have that certainty until the law is changed, and hopefully that will be earlier than mid next year. I'm not hopeful, but we're hoping that will be the case. But so that was declined. There is, they do have a notice of motion that will be on it will be in our next agenda on the summary of information. There is no extraordinary items, and now we will move to item number 8, Auckland Council submission on the proposed amendments to the Biosecurity Act. Simon, I think I saw in person. Dave, and also I see Imogen is coming up as well. I know Simon's done a lot of work on this, so if you just want to lead off. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. I have a short presentation for this item coming up, but good morning. For those that don't know me, my name is Simon Fraser. I'm a Senior Analyst in the Natural Environment Strategy team in Council and the Policy Department. With me I have Dave Allen, Manager of Natural Environment Strategy, and Imogen Bassett, the Head of Natural Environment Specialist Services. So hopefully when the presentation comes up.
Just taking a couple of seconds.
While we wait, so the paper today has a draft submission for approval by the committee on proposed changes to the Biosecurity Act. MPI have undertaken public consultation on policy decisions to progress forward with this.
Just swapping the computers over, sorry. Nearly there. I think we do have the presentation on Nexus. Yeah, we do. So if you just go to, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Cool. So presentation, just a quick overview of biosecurity and the consultation package, why we're submitting on the consultation, how it relates to Council's work, a bit of an overview of how we've developed the submission and an overview of the submission itself, and then some next steps for the submission. So New Zealand's biosecurity system is underpinned by the Biosecurity Act 1993. It's the piece of legislation that provides a framework and tools for managing biosecurity risk. It protects our way of life and our values, so our natural environment, our taonga species and our indigenous biodiversity, our economy and primary industries, human health and national security. Everyone has a part to play in biosecurity. It's not just the dogs and the people at the border. And you can see on the right there a wee infographic from the consultation itself, just highlighting the range of interventions in the biosecurity system, so including offshore, at the border, and within New Zealand. So the consultation package itself, the main purpose is to update and modernise the Act. The Act itself is seen as working reasonably well, but there's a number of minor issues that have been identified for some improvements. The Act itself is over 30 years old now. The last major amendment was in 2012, so it's overdue from a regulatory stewardship kind of view for a bit of an update. The consultation package has over 70 policy proposals that span across a range of areas across the biosecurity system, so system-wide issues, funding and compensation, border and imports, readiness and response, long-term management, and then surveillance and interfaces with legislation managed by the Department of Conservation. The consultation package just aims to improve the framework and the legislative tools within the Act, so really that kind of high-level systems thinking around the Act and how it works, rather than focusing on individual issues with individual pests and diseases. So the reason why we're submitting, so Auckland Council has a mandated role under the Act to manage pests and diseases at a regional and local level. Auckland Council also has a large operational program for pest management. We've had several high-profile biosecurity issues in Auckland across recent years, so Kari dieback, Lurper and Queensland fruit fly are some of the real high-profile ones that we've had. Biosecurity has strong links to other council work programs, so our role in managing Indigenous biodiversity in the region, the resilience of natural ecosystems to climate change, and managing the public spaces and facilities. And those public facilities also include things like the ports and marinas, and also Auckland Zoo is a key one that is managed by the Biosecurity Act in part. The Auckland region is also more at risk to new pests and diseases, so we are the main international gateway into the country. And also our high urban population and diversity of population presents a number of unique risks to manage in biosecurity for us, particularly in pest management. So just to give an overview of where this consultation sits amongst our pieces of work, so the Biosecurity Act is that overarching legislative framework, and the consultation is aimed at amending that. The Act then informs our role as regional leadership of biosecurity at a regional and local level. Below that is our regional pest management plan, which is the regional statutory document that directs action on specific pests and diseases, and then that leads into operational programs to manage those pests and diseases. And just noting that the current Let's Protect Our Environment consultation that's going on at the moment, so that's around gaining public and community input to help inform the next version of the regional pest management plan. So developing the submission, so there's been a lot of pre-engagement with MPI. So MPI originally announced the work to update the Act about 3 years ago now, and in that time there's been a bunch of engagement, particularly through the regional sector groups, so through the biomanagers and the biosecurity working group, which are part of the regional council SIG network. There's also been direct engagement with MPI staff and council staff on developing the proposals. To develop the submission, so we've had a fairly wide-ranging internal staff engagement, so it's been led by the Natural Environment Strategy team, and we've sought interest and input from across the council group, including CCOs. There's also been a fairly extensive mana whenua engagement, so we've contacted mana whenua directly to alert them to the opportunity to submit directly to MPI, and we've also facilitated direct engagement with MPI via the mana whenua Kaitiaki forum. As an overview of our submission, so we're generally supportive of the proposals put forward, and that kind of reflects that ongoing engagement that we've had with MPI, and MPI being really willing to take on board the feedback from councils as part of that process. We note its intention to improve the Act and address issues within the legislative processes within the Act, and in particular we've got strong support for access to infringement offences for regional councils to manage those low-level biosecurity infringement offences that we have across the region, so it's not a power that we currently have access to under the Act. Enhanced compliance options for controlled area notices, faster declarations for biosecurity emergencies, improved processes for pest, pathway and small-scale management plans, so a number of tools that the council uses for managing pests and diseases, and then support for precedents over relevant sports fishing provisions within the Conservation Act and the freshwater fisheries regulations, and also precedents for the Biosecurity Act over some aspects of the Wild Animal Control Act. So next steps, so the recommendations before you today is approving the attached draft submission, subject to any minor editorial changes discussed at the meeting today. We've also would like to invite, if a Hukura member would like to be a signatory to the submission as well. And just noting submissions now close for this on 13th of December, so previously it was 29th of November, but MPI extended that consultation period last week, so we've got plenty of time to make any minor changes to our submission if we need to. So that's the presentation today, and happy to hand it back over for any questions.
Cool. Thank you very much. Deputy Chair, Councillor Dalton would like to move. I'm happy to, if anyone else wants a second. Councillor Darby would like to second. And we've got a question from Councillor Baker.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. And so just, I guess, I read that there's 14 pages that talk about what we're doing in an introduction, and I think in paragraph 34 on page 12, there's a bullet point that talks about the primary production sector, and I think that's it. And so I guess my question is, when we're talking about everything else in context and we spend 34 pages doing that, 14 pages doing that, we are renowned, we are the food bowl of New Zealand according to everyone, we've got rules in place to protect our soils. Food security is an unbelievably important thing, not only to Auckland and to New Zealand, but it is also a really, really important thing for those people who produce that food. And our submission doesn't mention it once. Our submission doesn't talk about the importance of that I can see anywhere, and I want to know why that is missed out, and I want to know what engagement we have had with our primary sector, because we are an incredibly important part to play, and that food security, if you ask them, they will tell you the importance. And so I haven't had a read of the Act, but I have in the proposal, but I've read ours, and I'm really quite disappointed that we have missed that. I might have missed it, but I'm looking for some guidance.
Through the Chair, thank you for the question. Look, in general, the primary sector, we recognise they have a very strong interest in biosecurity, and they take a strong lead in that, particularly through the government industry agreements as part of the Act. As part of the engagement, so we did present to the Rural Advisory Panel the other week around that, and encouraged the members there to make their submissions directly through that. I understand a number of those industry groups represented were preparing submissions for that. I understand also MPI has been doing direct engagement with industry on that, so we've particularly on the proposals relating to industry within the consultation package, we've kind of stepped back from those, recognising it's more a role for industry to have a say on how they work within the Biosecurity Act on that, rather than us trying to impose a view on industry's behalf.
Can I just provide a reassurance? I guess we've talked about economic consequences as associated with biosecurity risks. I think what we can do is, include some reference to horticulture or agricultural production as one of the, key risks to that particular sector. I think that would be just a sentence or two that we might add in if it's not already there. But I think we do talk broadly about economic consequences, and I guess that's why we sort of hadn't gone expressly to identifying all the sectors affected. But we can address that.
I guess my follow-up to that is we should be supporting, and we don't. And so we spend a huge amount of time in our feedback supporting various parts of things. And so the support we've given to Māori and is huge and great. One bullet point, one sentence. What does that show? I mean, I think council should be doing a better job in this regard to support one of our most critical industries in the country that has a huge base here, and we don't. We give it one sentence, one bullet point. And so I want to see a greater effort that we are supporting and not leaving it to them, because if we're going to do that, we'd have a very small report, a very small submission. We need better support of our primary industry in this submission.
And through the Chair, can I just add too? So absolutely take your point that could be more explicitly there. I'd also say, we absolutely understand that that's really important, and it's implicit in a lot of the other things. So many of the systems thinking pieces that are alluded to really would be significantly impactful for primary industry. It's just that they're impactful across the system, and so we haven't singled that out, but absolutely that's in the back of our thinking. So we can make that more explicit, but that is certainly there. Yeah.
I'm keen for that too, but there is several There is several mentions, but it should be bigger. So it does, in the general feedback, the second one is around economy in the primary sector. Then there's 38 that talks about primary production, pests and diseases. And I think on page 6, it talks about our Auckland plan focus on economy in the primary sector and agriculture. So there are speckled mentions through, but I think Andy's right that if we strengthened that side of the, have its own piece, I don't think we need to do necessarily a resolution on it. But yeah, although it's mentioned, it should be, does say it's mentioned quite a few times, but I should have picked up that it probably should have had its own. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely there throughout, Andy, but it does need to be more implicit. Yeah, strengthened.
So can I suggest we work with yourself, Councillor Hills, and maybe Councillor Baker, just to
It would be good
some
to
strengthen the words for inclusion.
Yeah,
we can do that.
I assume everyone's fine with that. I don't think we need to go around. But thanks, Councillor Baker. Councillor Fletcher. Sorry. No worries. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. This, as I often am, is a little off mark, and I realise this is a submission, etc. I didn't read much because every time I read, whatever I read triggered my thoughts about how do we comply? What's the point of all this if we don't comply? Here we have in Waitakere in West Auckland a controlled area notice, which is about keeping an organism in, a waterborne, earth-held organism, and somehow our organisation is making ourselves track it to the other side of Auckland. And there's all sorts of workarounds and things taking place. How once this sort of stuff is in place, what's already in place, how do we monitor ourselves? What's our internal mechanisms?
So that is, in relation to implementation of our existing controls. We have a range of different operational systems and processes in place. We have standard operating procedures for our staff and contractors, and we're always thinking about the outcome that we have, and that's going to be the impact of these things. So I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to in terms of tracking things around the region, but certainly
Imogen, that is about when if we dig or a developer digs,
it's going to closed landfill.
Yeah, then we have to take it to a closed landfill. And what Councillor Turner's saying, why are we trucking that?
Yeah, that's right.
So that would be a requirement under the RMA probably. But
and so I think the key thing there is around making sure that there's a destination that is not going to be a sort of a waypoint for further spread. And so we carefully choose those closed landfills because they're sealed, there's not going to be further spread from there, and of course you want to be careful around how that movement is happening from those two places. But yeah, absolutely, operationally we do pay a great deal of attention to those things and prioritise our effort to the things which will be most impactful.
So if I may, so at a site visit with one of our CCOs to do with 2,500 cubes in Kerikeri, I'm told the cost of shifting this is 1.5 million, so we're going to work out a workaround, and we might be able to place it in some private places, and it might be able to be purposefully used for recreation, for restoration of driveways, etc. What I see on the ground makes this stuff pointless. So that's the point I'm trying to make right now, and that's what kept coming into my mind every time I read even little bits of it. Thank you.
I think I know exactly what project you're talking about there, Councillor Turner, so I think we can follow up with Recovery Office offline about that one.
thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Chair. Look, congratulations. I want to add my voice to support for what you're doing here. And I support Councillor Baker's recommendation. But I've also got another issue. So first of all, I want to just tell you that I support the work around funding tools and coordination in the biosecurity system. But my concern is when I first became aware of Kalupa, kind of 18 months, it was almost if we were left to look after this by ourselves, right? And I don't want to kind of give the chair a list of things we kind of need to add and have more emphasis on, but is there anything we can do to strengthen our submission to make it clear with central government that we actually need to partner these things a little bit better, because we just don't have the resources on our own.
Through the chair, thank you for that, Councillor Simpson. I think we do have a fairly strong portion around that, around working better with MPI and central government in general. I think if you feel like we can strengthen that a bit further, we're happy to look at that.
What I was saying, it's right there around tests and airport borders, but I was kind of looking at the Kalupa side, the ocean side, a bit better. You know, new things that come in. That was kind of like, so
Imogen might be able to comment on, our marine pest pathways and also the work that, I wouldn't say MPI left us completely alone. We did work pretty hard with officials as soon as Kalupa was an issue, but I think it was just more the funding. If you want to talk about a little bit about how this incorporates with those future marine pests. Imogen.
Yeah, sure. We do collaborate closely with MPI staff, and I think we have a good collaborative relationship. We have also, just as a regional sector, refreshed a memorandum of understanding with Ministry for Primary Industries and the Department of Conservation to try to really improve our collective ways of working as three government sectors, and we're optimistic that will be helpful. I think we do have really good on-the-ground relationships and collaboration, but the sticking point does tend to be the funding side from central government. I think that's broadly outside of the scope of this submission, in the sense that the Act doesn't speak to funding per se, but I think there is certainly an opportunity for us to be clear in our relationships with central government about our expectation around how that partnership happens across the system.
that's kind of what I was meaning. It's no good having all the act with all the stuff if it doesn't have any support to deliver on that. So kind of just wanted a line in there to make sure that while we're supporting this, its effectiveness can only come if there are the funding tools and the funding in place to deliver on that. Sorry.
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Definitely, I think, a submission on the Act, it doesn't necessarily, it should be the principles and the rules, regardless of how much funding is there, but I think that it will help us kind of put that forward.
Yeah, and absolutely there are other avenues by which we can be doing that wider advocacy, and we're happy to talk to about, if there are other things that councillors would like to see us progressing in that space. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And sorry about the mics. This seems to be always at this committee that we have random issues pop up, and this is one that hasn't before. So we will continue to try. Councillor Darby.
Thank you. Just regarding proposals 28A and 29B, I think it is, that's relating to biofouling. We support the direction, and it's a lot more stringent in terms of those controls that are being proposed. So in terms of, and I think it extends it to the complete exclusive economic zone, doesn't it? So currently, some commercial shipping, some cruise ships have been held up within the economic zone for anti-fouling, for biofouling. So does this proposal say, no, you can't undertake that within the risk zone, you have to be clean before you come into our exclusive economic zone? Does that, I just want clarification on that. And also in terms of ballast waters and discharges, cruise ships are like small cities, and some of them are still discharging massive quantities of so-called treated waters into the coastal environment. Are we confident that, as it's written now, we've captured concerns about ballast discharges, commercial ships take on water, discharge water to balance up, all that sort of thing, within our exclusive economic zone?
Through the chair, So yes, proposal 29 does strengthen the ability to manage biofouling on ships earlier. So it allows the MPI, clarifies the legislation to allow MPI to basically and undertake interventions earlier before the ships arrive. So rather than waiting until they're starting to get closer to territorial waters, they can start managing those earlier in the process. So that should lead to a reduced risk from those marine pathways. Certainly recognise that ships do present some fairly high biosecurity risks, particularly from biofouling and ballast water. There's a number of international agreements where MPI has been pushing for stronger regulations internationally around biofouling and managing ballast water. I think this is a step towards a better process, but I think there's probably further still, because it is, particularly for us being with a high number of ships coming in and out of Auckland harbours, it is a high risk pathway for us.
So you say it's a step towards. Do we need to say, well, you need to step further? I mean, we're at risk of, most of the commercial shipping is coming in at either Port of Auckland, Port of Tauranga, Northport. I mean, we've got massive exposure to commercial shipping. So do we need to strengthen that? Do we need to urge MPI to go further? Do we need to urge government to go further on this?
I think MPI are already pushing pretty hard on this. As I said, it is international agreements that they are lobbying for strengthened regulations in that space. Also would also lead us things that we can do internally within New Zealand around better management of marine pathways, and particularly between regions, and some of those marine pathway plans which are underway, not only within regions, but there's also work between councils working together around inter-regional marine pathway plans as well to help manage those risks. So there's a number of layers where we can have interventions and manage those.
Through the chair, if I can just add too, I think this goes as well to the point that the Deputy Mayor just made around the distinction between having rules in place and having the compliance and implementation. And so there is a sentence in our submission around highlighting that those rules do need to come with increased monitoring and compliance work. So we know, for example, we keep seeing new to New Zealand species turning up around Aotea Great Barrier, and there's very little Ministry for Primary Industries compliance or surveillance out there, even though that is within the ambit of existing regulation. So it's really about making sure that these rules are coupled with some actual implementation as well. Is key.
Thanks, Councillor Darby. Member Ashby.
Kia ora, thank you for the report. There's a lot of hard work gone into it, so just acknowledging that. Look, it's good to see the analysis and the recommendations around Māori and iwi, a greater role in the framework. Fed, I do agree that as it stands, the proposed changes are a bit weak there, so it's good to see Council supporting its treaty partner in that. So thank you for that. I'm really supportive of that. I suppose, turning to what this could mean on the ground for us here in Auckland. So though these proposals are from MPI, what would be some more potential opportunities for Council to work closer with Māori for biosecurity outcomes that might come out of this? And I'm mindful, just bouncing off the back of the implementation conversation. For example, I'm aware of Ngāti Manahiri and their wanting to build, more of that MPI function, basically, because they're actually not turning up to do any of that work. This is the reports I'm getting. So, for example, more powers transferred to iwi to actually do that control work. just speaking to, if you can speak to any of those opportunities.
Through the Chair, thank you, Member Ashby. Just would also note the support from the Hokura Secretariat and their input in helping shape some of that advice from a Māori perspective. So that was really appreciated from the staff. Look, I think generally we recognise that engagement with Māori throughout the biosecurity system has generally been weak, and there is a movement towards greater engagement and participation throughout the system. I think we recognise that MPI can do a better job, and I think also Council are moving towards that role as well, with partnering a lot more with iwi on the ground. I think Imogen can talk to some of the more operational programs where we are partnering a bit more with iwi.
Yeah, kia ora. Through the Chair, I think, yeah, absolutely, there are some opportunities to strengthen the Act in this space. I think there are also a range of opportunities to do things differently even within the current regulatory regime. So we know that particularly as we're getting into that post-treaty settlement space and there's more capacity within iwi entities, that there are a range of opportunities that really haven't been explored anywhere nationally but which are possible under the current Act. So there are opportunities, for example, for us to be employing mana whenua as authorised persons under the Act, so having enforcement powers in the same way that our staff or our contractors, at the moment we contract private organisations to do some of our work for us that involves use of powers under the Act. We can be increasingly looking to social procurement options that are employing Māori entities for that. I think another thing which is not well understood is that actually, although with our regional council hat on, we're the decision maker for whether a regional pest management plan is implemented or not, we're not actually the only organisation that can create propose a regional pest management plan. So it is possible for example, for an iwi entity to be a management agency for a regional pest management plan, and for there to be multiple regional pest management plans in any given region. I think most iwi entities that I've spoken with, feel like they're not there yet, but that's a kind of direction of travel that I feel may happen in the future, and we're certainly open to looking at how we can partner with greater implementation together on our next RPMP in the interim.
Perhaps just to add, one of the benefits of this reform is that it's actually looking at enhancing some of the processes that are available to provide a bit more agile responses for the regional sector or the councils that are affected. That links to a couple of comments that have been made by both Councillor Turner, Deputy Mayor Simpson and yourself, Member Ashby, just in terms of giving better tools for us to actually look at how we can link into the community and particularly for iwi hapu. So I think there's opportunity here to build on that in terms of these reforms and look to see how we can be as effective as possible on the ground. And that also speaks to, how do we get to those remote communities that might have some of the risks that we may not recognise until we actually hear from them. So that's important for us to just recognise in this reform, is that this should make things better. But I'll take your point in terms of how we might look to improve this for implementation down the track.
Thanks, Member Ashby. And last question, Councillor Turner.
Thank you. Just picking up on Member Ashby's and your response, my antenna went up when you talked about the possibility of multiple pest management strategies. How is that better than a singular one where we're...
I guess it depends on the situation. So at the moment we've taken a view that we combine all of our different pest management issues into one place, and that is simple and efficient. On the other hand, when we look nationally, there are multiple national pest management plans, and that makes sense in that context because they're very tailored to specific things. So for example, you have one that the kiwi fruit industry has in place, which was around kiwi fruit vine health and managing pests of that industry. You've got a separate one for managing Cody-Dieback disease, for example. And so that separation of specific pieces of work can work really well when you've got a really tailored piece of work that is quite specific to a particular sector, and you might have a different organisation that's implementing that. And so it very much depends on the context, really. So I think I wouldn't prejudge the pros and cons of any given situation without knowing what it was. Yeah.
Right, thank you very much. We will get that. We're not so time constrained now, so it's great to have the submission before a committee, which doesn't always happen with government timeframes. But we will have time to get that part on primary industries and agriculture and get that to Councillor Baker and Councillor Dodson, myself, and a member of the IMS Haukura to look at. So that would be really, really good. I will get you to step back from the table in case there is debate. Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this? Cool. All those in favour? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to item 9. This is plan change operative. Got Dave here.